Steady Fear, 55 minutes into lock on this super exciting 6-game slate, 7 games on the day. Only 6 pertinent for our late slate here. It is up on the YouTube, it should be up on the Periscope, it should be up on all formats known to man, semaphore flags, and carrier pigeon currently pending. So yesterday with all the blowouts was certainly an interesting, a bit of a shit show, I think one might be able to say. And again, the Suns and their injury reporting really the highlight of that frenetic, particularly querulous, everybody's fine, TJ Warren is questionable, TJ Warren is out, everyone is fine otherwise, hour before lock. Wait, Devin Booker is doubtful. Wait, no, he's out like 3 minutes after that. So spend the whole day talking about the Josh Jackson potential there, and then the whole day talking about the obviously Elie Okobo is going to be a very popular guy, or Obuku, or Okobu, or any combination of vowels K and B that we frequently see in the Osmo.com premium Slack chat. He did play. I warned a lot on him that I thought the last game represented a ceiling game. Certainly, he was going to get a little more attention without Devin Booker there, but it was a game that was interesting to break down later in the day. It was interesting to see how, Okobo still didn't manage to get there, which says something about his abilities to create for himself. It was interesting to see that in a game with no TJ Warren and no Devin Booker, which are, frankly, two men who never saw a shot they didn't like, so them freeing up 40-odd shots. Trevor Ariza managed to play a pile of time and still only take 6. Says something about his real ceiling of being able to create for himself. Trey Burke is apparently injured, so I say this only because it would be nice to be able to target the Knicks. Although, in fairness, I think the Knicks' uncertainty has been much more profitable than not for those in my coterie, I shall gently call you at this particular juncture. So I guess it's bad, but maybe it'll get a little more consistent if they cut down to 5-6 active point guards on the roster. That being said, I think everyone is in. The retweets, the everything. We are gonna have the premium Slack up. Hello, you fine people. I'm opening up the YouTube chat. Hey, you dirty freeloaders. It's good to talk to you too. Let us go then, you and I, where the evening is spread out across the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. That's T.S. Eliot, love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. For those of you who are looking for a little more culture in your Saturday evening. However, for the rest of you, let's get into these games right now. We have the Nets visiting the Washington Wizards. This sort of the most, when you are looking at the Nets, GPP risky-ass option I have ever seen in my life. So the matchup is obviously pristine. Targeting the Wizards has been something we have loved to do this entire year. They play really fast, they don't play any defense, they rebound like shit, like they just do everything possible to hand the other team lots and lots of fantasy points, and generally that's something you like. The Nets, unfortunately, are the most asshole-ish team under the tutelage of Kenny Atkinson as far as playing minutes on a back-to-back. If you go back and look at Nets back-to-backs over the last few years, there are so many times that they just completely shit-can it. I mean completely shit-can it. There are literally 3 times over the last 2 years where they're on a back-to-back, and not even because the game gets out of control, just nobody plays more than 26 minutes, because why not? That'll be fun. So we're dealing in a situation where last night you had 39 for Jared Allen, 48 for there. Obviously, we're in a double overtime game, which you probably should have guessed from 48 minutes even for Spencer Dinwiddie, although he might have just been doing his best Wilt Chamberlain. One of your best pieces of Wilt Chamberlain trivia, the fact that one year he averaged more than 48 minutes per game because of overtimes. Now, in fairness, when you're a Giant, and it's equivalent to me playing my sister's kids when you're playing some guys with, my age, disposition, and athletic position in a empty swimming pool in Hershey, Pennsylvania, it's a little easier to play every minute, but still, cool little stat trivia there for you. D'Angelo Russell, 46 minutes. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, 38 minutes. And Damari Carroll, 39 minutes. So, you want to love all of these guys, and we should love all these guys. They're all very reasonably priced, with the exception of, D'Angelo Russell has certainly bumped himself up a fair bit due to his recent play, as was projected and spoken about many, many times when Caris LeVert went out. True or false? You're the inspiration for part of the Outsiders. Stay gold, pony boy. You like that? Wilt Chamberlain never fouled out of an NBA game. That one I didn't know. My other favorite Wilt Chamberlain is when they complained that he couldn't pass, he said, fine, I'm going to lead the league in assists this year, and did. Just to give you an idea. That would be like me claiming to be able to lead the touting league and not making obscure references. It is an accomplishment that one would not expect someone would be able to completely reorient their personality and style to be able to achieve. Jaylen Brown out for the day, for those of you who are hesitant. He's been doubtful, and for every team except for maybe, the Suns, that usually means you're out, but Jaylen Brown will not participate in this evening's contest. So, let's talk about these here Nets. On the face of them, they're all basically priced a little better on DraftKings. Maybe actually everyone on the team. I think it's actually everyone on the team. I'm sorry for you person who said I haven't been profitable with the Knicks. I don't know if people in the premium stack have been profitable more times, but there was a big Vonleh across the grain day. There was I said everyone play Moutier and not Burke day that made a couple people like 5 digits. So there has been many dollars made from it. Perhaps not to as many people as you would like to distribute them. D'Angelo Russell, it's a tremendous matchup. Has been good in the past against John Wall, who's been good against him, although most of those games, save one, were when he was with the Lakers. So that doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. But, D'Angelo Russell, obviously a guy who carries massive upside. When Caris LeVert went out, and when LeVert went out, he was, $6,000, and I was saying play him and everything because he's going to normalize around 7.5. He's now at 7,800, 7,200. That's about where he's going to sit. So, for every guy on this team, you're just sucking up some degree of risk as far as them being able to play further. Russell is young and basically perfectly healthy. I think there is a 80% chance D'Angelo Russell is not encumbered by minutes at all in this game. But I do think there's an extra 20%, and I'm obviously pulling that number completely out of my backside, Dwight Howard style. But I think there is some significant chance that they just go, fuck it, we're going to let Shabazz Napier. I like Shabazz Napier a lot, and he played a ton of minutes yesterday, but he's not going to play a ton of minutes most of the year. D'Angelo is a brilliant tournament play. You didn't want to play him in cash anyway. It's going to come down to an ownership question as to, whether or not I will pull up our most recent FanVice ownership. FanVice? I dropped a FanVice bomb. That's funny. I never once, when working at FanVice, said Roto Grinders. Emac screwed up and said it like 4 times. Like, welcome to Roto Grinders. We're like, oh. I never ever did that. I just dropped a FanVice bomb while working at Osimo. So, pulling up our state-of-the-art, best in the industry ownership rankings here at Osimo. And, I will tell you that Brooklyn is the 2nd, 3rd, and 7th most owned players. If this chooses to be the case, and the numbers are this high, I'm probably going to try to look elsewhere. That's just my gut. That's just seeing Kenny Atkinson do it just out of the blue. There's literally been a couple times where the game was perfectly competitive and Kenny Atkinson said, screw it, and people led the game with 25 minutes, and he ran out 13 guys. They played 9 guys last night. Okay, but I do think the risk isn't even per guy. I do think it's less disparate than you would think. In a vacuum, you would think, let's say with a normal, intelligent coach, you would think that D'Angelo Russell, they certainly want to have a shot at winning what seems like a very winnable game, probably going to get his full minutes, and they don't really have anyone to duplicate his skill set. He would have a fairly low risk of being rested. Whereas DeMarre Carroll, who is made out of crumbly graham crackers and held together with used tampons and rubber bands, we should be really careful in resting that guy. And that is the case. I still do think Carroll, for example, carries a higher risk of being rested, either full game or partially, due to his age and condition, etc. But those numbers are much more narrow because Atkinson has a history of just saying the team, which to me is very relevant here. But we have DeMarre Carroll at $3,400 on DraftKings as the number 2 guy in ownership at 42%. That's fine. I certainly think you would like to get some sort of news before you go there when you can make the pivot. He did not even start in that last game, so you're not going to get he's starting thing. Basically, Kenny Atkinson, I will give some credit here. So yesterday was, I believe, the first time in my entire NBA DFS touting career of some 1,000-odd shows that I said I like Allen Crabbe. Like, I didn't love him, but I'm like, Allen Crabbe actually pairs up fairly well against this Memphis team, has looked good against them in the past. They open holes that I think he's excellent in actually filling in there in his time. Without Joe Harris, let's run some Allen Crabbe. I thought we were dead because Allen Crabbe had 3 fouls in the first 7 minutes. And he eventually played only 23 minutes, but he had more than 20 fantasy points in those 23 minutes. So I'm still calling that a victory for getting 0.9-something fantasy points a minute out of Allen Crabbe there. But he's very interesting here, as he's basically the only rotation guy they want to give minutes to, who didn't get minutes screwed last night. And he played only a minute at the end of the fourth quarter, basically, after playing his normal role in the first, second, and third quarters. And he got 3 fouls in the first quarter. And Kenny Atkins brought him back with like 8 minutes left in the second quarter, and he played like 7 more minutes. So shout out to Kenny Atkinson. You play the players you need to play, and if they foul out, they lose minutes, as opposed to ensuring the players you want to play lose minutes when you want to play them. Somehow Kenny figured that one out, as opposed to most of the other coaches. But well done there, Kenny Atkinson. Jared Allen, you like a lot. You like the matchup a lot. The prices come down. He's not so disproportionately priced on DraftKings as opposed to FanDuel. He's very much in play on FanDuel. He's certainly not as good of a cash play as, say, Tristan Thompson, who is just still priced too cheap, chewing up minutes, and just banging out double-doubles constantly. But I think Jared Allen is most easily termed as an excellent tournament pivot off of Tristan. But going back to the rest of this Nets team, this is funny. I always feel like I don't have enough to say, and then we get on the show and I spend 14 minutes on a team, and all of a sudden I've got 3 games left and 9 minutes to go. Don't play Joe Harris because he's not playing. Rondé makes sense in tournaments for me. Again, he played a pile of minutes last night, but 6,000, 5,500. Just a glorious matchup. And, if he plays, he should do well. So the real question becomes, I'm trying to think if I have any better analysis than that to drop on anyone. I do generally prefer D'Angelo Russell to Spencer Dinwiddie at his prices, though obviously on FanDuel it's a hell of a lot closer. There's $1,400 more for D-Russ as opposed to DK. It's only $900 more. When you play guys on Wilkin, you are hoping, A, they're not just coach screwed, which is, in my opinion, a significant chance, but not, 10%, 20%. It's somewhere in that range. They don't randomly get blown out. Feels pretty good. But they're certainly going to be on the early hook if you think there's any chance this game gets out of control. So the issue becomes, what do you think about the Wizards? The Wizards are in the opposite situation. They also want to live now, also want to win now. They probably want to live now also, but played last night, but they got their shit pushed in so hard by the 76ers. They all got very little appreciable time, so we can expect them to get in there with aplomb. The negative news for guys on that team would be that Otto Porter is returning from a day off for, I believe it was personal. But Porter being back is bad for Oubre, bad for Green, bad for Satoransky, bad for Austin Rivers, who I believe, touted yesterday for the first time ever and came through with like 24 fantasy points, so thumbs up Austin Rivers time. Although I really like Jeff Green, and he went to the locker room twice and was shit. And he was shit before he went to the locker room the first time, so I can't blame it entirely on that. But getting back to this evening, I think Porter being back actually ends up being good for Markieff Morris because it means Markieff gets more of his time at the 5, which this year and previous years he has proven to absolutely excel at. And this is not a matchup in which I'm concerned about that occurring. Green is out. Okay, that's Green being out makes brings Satoransky and Rivers back into reasonable tournament plays to throw up there. But they will start Wall, Beal, Oubre, Porter, Bryant, with Morris being the stud off the bench there. But you can certainly now, as punts, play Rivers and Satoransky. I would rather play Satoransky between the two of them at this juncture. But yeah, so in a vacuum, Wall and Beal are still too cheap. They're both $500-600 cheaper on DraftKings versus what they cost on FanDuel. They're both well too cheap. You're betting on this game staying close, and the weird thing about that is you're going to want to run it back with some Nets, and as I've mentioned, I have some concern with the Nets. So if you believe our ownership projections, and they are right the vast majority of the time, and I am inclined to believe them, George Hill is in. Well, it's getting all kinds of freaky out in here. Sato's starting? Okay, now people are just... All right, first of all, I'm moving my microphone up here, but am I correct that after getting rid of that disruptive influence that is. So Sato is starting over Ubra, which makes Ubra interesting again. How fascinating. So, am I correct that the audio is fine today? Let's start with that question, because we obviously had Chris Spags, who, let's be honest, really messes everything up. Sort of messed that up yesterday, too. We couldn't hear anything. I got all metallic up on you, and that was not enjoyable. So, that's making me a little joke there about Spags. But I will assume that our audio quality today is at least tolerable. No one's saying anything, so I'm assuming we are okay. Just checking on some other news, some other notes. Audio fantastic now, thanks. I like to sound clear as a bell for you. I actually need vocal cord surgery at some point. I wrecked my vocal cords, so lock him in on FanDuel is what you're saying. Yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of Satoransky on FanDuel. He's fine on DK too. I think he's 36 FanDuel, 34 DK. Those are both fantastic prices. You'd rather he wasn't starting with him getting some better usage off the bench, but still just has a guaranteed role now. Assuming we confirm that there's nothing wrong with Kelly Oubre, he makes a very interesting, especially DK at $4,500 shot here, where he's again going to really have some command of that second unit. But very interesting that we're basically playing Beal at the 3, Porter at the 4, Bryant at the 5. That is a small, fast lineup. So generally, you like this if you're playing anyone in this game. Not that Oubre is not a perfectly rapidly moving player, but this is certainly a commitment to running small. Hey, there's the Nets lineups: Russell, Dinwiddie, Crabbe, Hollis, Jefferson, Allen. Okay, so we feel a little better about that. Can you play Sato on cash on FanDuel? Yeah, he's an excellent playing cash on FanDuel. I need to look at some of the other point guard options we have, but he's certainly in play. There's nothing wrong with him. I'm not saying he's necessarily one of my top 2. Satoransky or Carroll for cash? Yeah, for me, that's absolutely Satoransky at this point. Starting, presumably only going to play a few minutes, then go out, then come back in and back up Wall to some reasonable extent. But I would certainly rather play in cash Satoransky than Carroll. Especially where I expect, this will knock Carroll's ownership down, which makes me dislike him less in tournaments. Let's move on to another game because there's a lot to discuss and there's clearly quite a bit going on here. And we'll readdress through questions and other things as it comes up. So, the Warriors plus Cleveland Bigs minutes secure in a blowout given the injuries. I got Channing Frye hanging around. They're fairly secure, but with Zizic out, you're feeling like they're going to have... I don't think Biggs. I mean, I still think they put Tristan Zance on the bench. But Nance would probably play the whole blowout now, which he hasn't always in the past. So I would feel a little better about Nance. That's a good question. Golden State Warriors visiting the Pistons. Only 5-point boost right now for the Warriors. Steph will play and not have a minutes limit per se, but may have limited minutes, which also is a way you could describe, I don't know, every player playing every basketball game ever. But basically, they don't want to run him any extra. If they can get ahead by a significant limit, they'll try to keep him out, and they probably won't randomly pick this day to push him out to, say, 40 minutes. Steph is probably my player of favorite for these Golden State Warriors at this point. Expect the ownership to be muted by his timeout. Do I want 36 minutes of Steph more than 30 minutes of Steph? Yeah, but he was basically ready to go last game, and they went, yeah, he's fine, he's 100%, but the trainer said, it's a long season, why not? We'll take one more day. But he looks absolutely perfect. So, even with the limited minutes, at what I expected to be relatively reduced ownership, I like Steph Curry quite a bit. In tournaments, he's priced almost identically to John Wall. John Wall probably a slightly better cash option than Steph Curry for that reason. But probably Wall and cash. Steph is an excellent tournament pivot. Not that I think Wall is A must in cash, or B, not good in tournaments. All those things are also true. But if asked to play one in the old cashola, I would go with John Wall between those two gentlemen. Klay Thompson, much like Kevin Durant, a little bit priced up. Durant's only 10.8 on DK. That's a slight price up from where he should be with Steph in there, but he hasn't gone, completely, ham crazy. He's still very much in play, but Klay, you really want 6,000, 6,500 Klay. That is the number which best encapsulates his value when you have Steph Curry in there, and that He's going to get you 20 every game. Many 25. Reasonably frequently 30. 35 is getting rare. Occasionally 40, and once a month 69. And that's pretty well, encompassed by him costing $6,500 or something. He's over 7K everywhere here. At that point, he's still just fine in tournaments. He's not going to be inordinately owned. If you feel like playing Klay Thompson in a tournament, there's very rarely going to be a day you can't play Klay Thompson in a tournament, and this is certainly one. You're paying the extra money, but you can certainly argue that Steph coming back and all the attention that gives him makes him, his ownership will come down due to everyone being like, Durant's been off the wall and Steph's been missing. Now Steph's back. I don't want to play Klay. So maybe your Klay Thompson ownership at $7,200, which would in a vacuum should be 11%, ends up being 7%. That feels pretty good. So very ambivalent on Klay, but just points per dollar doesn't seem. Am I worried about Curry being rusty or limited at all? Yes, I'm slightly worried about both those things. I would rather have a player who played a couple days ago and has been playing regularly than a player who is off an extended break. Steph Curry, I think, one of the most gifted shooters ever, hashtag understatement. But sure, I'm a little bit worried about now. I will say the matchup with the Detroit backcourt shouldn't make his life terribly difficult. I don't think, Ish or Reggie are going to get out there and suddenly make shit difficult on him. But him being limited, yes, I think I'd project him for 3 less minutes than in a normal game. And there's a possible blowout in every game, but also this one. So, yeah, I'm not excited about those things, but I am excited about Steph. Just remember where we felt about Steph a month and a half ago. Everyone remembers Steph, coming, I guess slightly less than that. We'll say a month ago, we'll say 1st of November. He was just a monster, wasn't he? People are just like, God, I can't believe Steph was this guy. I mean, when Steph went down to like 9,900, people threw a parade. He's 9,000 now. I still think that's compelling in tournaments, like I said. But there is enough uncertainty, and that's why I would even play Wall over him in tournaments. And Wall, hardly a certitude these days. Don't play Andre Iguodala. It wasn't even good, really. He had hit one decent game in there towards the end. But I think we can all say disappointed with the opportunity he's had during Steph's absence. Durant, I think, is, just fine. That FanDuel price 11.7. Okay, that's rough. It's in the same thing sort of as James Harden as... Okay, that's more than I want to pay, but still 6 game slate can certainly get on top of that. The rest of the team, I don't ever really want to play these guys, and this shorts minutes a little bit, so the entire Cook, Livingston, McKinney, Jones, Looney, Bell, Jerebko tier of dudes are always fine to throw in a tournament lineup because every 14th game they have a game that makes paying it off, but certainly by any cashy distribution, points per dollar distribution, likelihood of being exceptional distribution, this would not be a spot we are looking to target them in. Going to the Pistons, a little bit of news I don't know if everyone talked about is that Luke Kennard is going to be back. That messes up a whole lot of plays here as far as guys we would think about taking random tournament flyers on who I normally would have a tier above, say, all those Golden State guys that we were just talking about. But Glenn Robinson, Reggie Bullock, Ish Smith, Langston Galloway. Now you add Luke Kennard back. That's a whole lot of random wings in there. Knocks a little bit off the ceiling on all of them. The wings are one of the positions that the Warriors defend a little bit better. I don't really think I'm going here. If I absolutely had to play one of these guys, on DK, I'd probably spend $4,000 and play Stan Johnson. Like, he's just the guy who's shown the ability. He's got a couple 40-pointers in his last 6 games. He's really embraced the bench role, but it's not good for any of them, and I don't want to play any of these guys. You can Reggie. Much rather on DK at 56 than FanDuel at 64, but you can do it. What's interesting is this game is only... So just sitting back from it, this game is only a 5-point game, and this is a Pistons team where you expect most of the production to come from Blake and Andre, but this isn't really a good matchup for either of them. Blake has spent a lot of time playing the modern Golden State Warriors, and he hasn't been very good. Now, that has a lot to do with the fact that he's usually dealing with Draymond. Getting Draymond out of there obviously helps anyone. So I'm ambivalent to slightly positive on Blake. Drummond, this is just not a matchup that suits his strengths. He wants to slow it down. This is not a team that does it that much, and having Steph in there versus not having Steph really speeds up the pace of this team pretty significantly. They pick up an extra half dozen possessions per game. So I don't want to spend those numbers on Andre. If you went back and looked at, I don't know, however many games Andre Drummond has played against the modern Warriors, the Warriors of the last 4 years, you're going to be generally unexcited with what you see. You're going to get a pile of 30, 35-point games, the occasional 40 or 50. I can remember one very good game out of him. So, can you get 65 out of Andre here? Yes, obviously. He's that good now and just can do enough things and get 20 and 20. And if he wants the rebounds and the game somehow plays into that, sure, he could get there. But not a day I'm actively looking to target Andre. And I know that's somewhat of a hot take because other people have been like, I can't wait to do that. Ante Zizic is ruled out. Colin Sexton will still start over George Hill. Lauri Markkanen will come off the bench. All right. Well, I'm a little less comfortable with my don't play any of the Bulls sort of rhetoric I was talking about before because that's fewer minutes than I thought, and coming off the bench means he ends up beating like some Chandler Hutchinson minutes, and so maybe other guys are reasonable here. Thoughts on Giles? Again, we'll get to that game in a second, but tournaments, wicked cheap, obviously fine, but Costa Koufos is back. If Bagley was out, I'm fine with Giles. If Bagley was in, I don't want any Giles with Costa and Marvin around. Celtics. You're talking about Andre playing with Dre on the court. Yes, I am talking about Andre playing with Dre on the court most of those games. Not all of those games. But again, Andre tended to be dealing with some version of Zaza Pachulia and JaVale McGee and other guys. It is more of a pace and system issue. But one of the things that Andre would have to do with and the system in general would be, sort of ball denial, allowing them to slow down the game, to move the ball where they wanted to get it into Andre to dominate in the post. If they can manage to get around that hurdle and he gets the ball down low a number of times, yes, I would presume he would be great. But there are obviously foul issues with some exceptional guys on this team who Drummond could certainly get into an issue fouling. There's even sort of hack a Drummond possibilities. So I'm fine playing Drummond. I am disinclined towards playing him today over, say, Karl Anthony Towns at almost the same price. In this game, Boston visiting Minnesota at 8 p.m. That's what we in the industry call a segue. I generally like Towns here. He saves you $600 and $200 versus Andre Drummond, if I'm remembering that correctly. Carries, I think, a similar ceiling, a somewhat safer floor for me. Games closer by a few points. Don't really care about the difference between a 2-point line and a 5-point line or whatever it was. But also I think the ownership is better. Cash, you could argue Drummond for me. But in tournaments, I would rather play Karl Anthony Towns than play Andre Drummond. Rest of this team, I don't hate Jeff Teague, who has been strong in this spot against Kyrie, strong in this spot against Celtics. He's actually, produces about 10% above his normal fantasy points against Kyrie, against the Celtics. This just on paper, looking mostly at, historicity looks good for him. Having Jaylen Brown out helps him a little bit more. So I don't mind in tournaments, basically just the DK price running Jeff Teague out there. Don't love him, but at that price, I would have some exposure at 6K. Similar deal with Wiggins, but I'd rather play Teague than Wiggins. Covington, it's getting hard to pay $7,300 and $6,500 on DK. Obviously, we're a little more excited about that second one. And it's been just consistently good since he got there. They're going to want him to play all the minutes he can handle. But he's just starting to price out the upside a little bit. He needs like 4 stocks to hit his value, and there's games he's not even going to get there. Sure, there's games he's going to get 7, but it's interesting between Taj and Saric at the 4. Taj saves you a few $100s and is, I think, a somewhat better cash guy. Saric better in tournaments if you're filling out your 150 and he fits in somewhere, but not a particularly great spot for him. Derrick Rose I'd play over Teague on FanDuel, where you save $800 as opposed to DK where you save 1. But not a spot I love. Derrick Rose probably on the fade there today. I'm fine with going back to Marcus Smart. I will risk my 100% on correctly calling Marcus Smart number, saying I like him here today, especially 4,200 on DK. I still think Marcus Smart is very strong value. I still think he gets the minutes. I don't think the ownership is out of control, so I'm still on the play side as opposed to the pass side on him. Lowry and Chetty out. Boy, now we're getting some news here. All right, let's make some money. Let's make some money. Hoiberg said Markkanen can play in back-to-back games. That's nice of him. Making sure I didn't miss anything but Lowry and Chetty disappearing. Okay, so let's go into that entire game. Is there anyone else I want to talk about here? Horford's perfectly fine for me in tournaments. I actually kind of like the spot for him. Yeah, let's get to the relevant guys and save some money here. So let's skip ahead, skip to the end a bit. Let's go to the Raptors visiting the Cavs. So Lowry's out for some rest. All of a sudden, you know who wants to play? The man with the sexiest hands in all of basketball. Big hands, beautiful, talented Kawhi Leonard. And also, I think Emacs guy is the other guy we're talking about here. Right next to, if you're running up your value point guards, I would expect, even if we haven't confirmed this yet, that Fred VanVleet will get the start. Yeah, he looks pretty good against the Cavs for whatever the hell number he costs on various sites. He is now, even at more expensive, a better play than Satoransky. Pretty significantly. If you can only play or are only playing one of those guys for whatever reason. But you have some pretty strong value now in Smart, who I still like pretty considerably. Satoransky, Smart. We can do some real damage here, kids. So it's exciting news. Yeah, so that's an overall exceptional spot. Delon Wright becomes the guy who, if you're trying to be a little cuter here, I would pick up his minutes projection from something like 14 to something like 22. That's pretty interesting for me. Gets the run in the blowout now, which is still pretty probable for an exceptional team against a, not exceptional team. So Delon, Fred VanVleet confirmed starting. Yeah, that was pretty likely. Delon Wright becomes the really interesting guy at 34 on DK, also 36 on FanDuel, I think. One of those guys, just not as good of a play as VanVleet by any measure, but saving you, $1,000 and can do some real damage given enough time. And with the possibility of a blowout and Lowry out, that makes sense for me in tournaments. I like that a lot. We are 22 minutes before lock, so I'm guessing the ownership on these guys comes in low enough we actually want to suck up the chalk of, say, VanVleet in this situation. Looking over at the Cavs, yeah, this opens up a lot. So, would you punt to point guard tonight on FanDuel? I certainly have no issue. I don't know if Delon is a fan. I will check that on FanDuel. He is not. He is a shooting guard, so I'm fine throwing him there too. But I have no issue playing Satoransky and VanVleet at point guard, which is what I imagine you're asking when you say, hey, will you double punt these guys? But also Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi without Lowry is a real thing, even though it's rest. This game now has a much better chance of staying close. Kawhi not. By all means, get yourself some Leonard up in your life. Even Pascal Siakam now becomes a stronger tournament play for me. Jonas Valanciunas, who I already liked, becomes a stronger play for me. So feel free to get some of those guys. I really like some of the low-price centers on DK. Like, I really want to play Jonas Valanciunas and Wendell Carter, for example. We talked about Wendell Carter yesterday. Wasn't the greatest matchup, but I said during his intro, as many people have, look, he's going to come back at some point. He won't either A, foul out, or B, get blown out every game. Last game it was quasi-competitive. They kept it in the 10s and the teens long enough that you got a big Wendell Carter game. Would not be surprised if you see something similar in this position. These two teams played once this year. This will be the last meeting between Chicago and Houston because they have already played. And I'm fairly certain off the top of my head the top scoring player in that game the first time they played was Wendell Carter Jr. over Paul and Harden and Capella and everyone. I'm going to look it up now because I just remember noting it, that box, and I have it here downloaded. November 3rd, Rockets at Bulls. Wendell Carter Jr. had 43.75 fantasy points, which is half a fantasy point more than James Harden. Yeah, he was on top of that game. I'm not saying he's necessarily going to do that again, but I am saying he's $4,600. Showed us last night what he can do. There's obviously a superfluity of value now there, but feel free to run some, I don't know, Harden, Durant, Kawhi. Little guys we expect to score extremely well. The Cavs is what is a little bit more sticky for me here. I'm running... just give me a second here. I want to make my best guess at how this is going to work out. So Chetty played, 35 minutes last night. Was not good by any means. Would have been interesting today. had actually played well in this matchup in the past, somewhat surprisingly. When you had the matchup earlier this year, the opening day or the game of the year, you had the Cavs play Toronto. You had a really good Chetty game. It was one of the reasons everyone was high on Chetty in that first week, is that he put up whatever it was, 40 fantasy points against Toronto in the opener of the second game of the year, and then promptly fell off a cliff. But I would have had some interest in Chetty Osman there. Now, without Chetty in here, if we go back, and I have last night's popcorn up here somewhere, you're going to see these minutes go a number of places. It makes me more comfortable playing Alec Burks now. Alec Burks, played, I want to say 10 minutes in the first half, if something like that. 9 minutes in the first half. Then played a stint in the third quarter, and it was a blowout, so they just left him in the rest of the game and got 26. That number was pretty certainly going to come down. Now, Larry Nance, I still am concerned with his role in the offense. This is just one of those things where they're just not using him. If you play basketball down at the goddamn YMCA, it has something to do with just the point guard and the people just getting you the ball and making you part of the offense. They're just guys who are not good on certain teams, and they get traded, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that guy's really good. Just so you don't use him. And this version of the Cavs, version 5 of this year, just doesn't use Larry Nance. He plays 30 whatever the hell minutes and takes 5 shots. So yeah, he might get you 12 rebounds and 3 steals and 2 blocks and 9 points and 2 assists, but it has really capped his upside. Getting Chetty out of there opens up a butt ton of shots. Probably was going to put up 20 shots here, so you're pretty excited about this. So I want Nance to take over and play a larger role, but I can't guarantee that. I just think Sexton largely responsible for not looking his way enough, and again, he shares most of his time on the court with Sexton. But Nance also now guaranteed some backup center time, but long story short, I like all these guys more now. It's slightly less likely to be a blowout. So Jordan Clarkson, yeah. Larry Nance, yeah. Colin Sexton, I guess. Tristan Thompson, yeah. Rodney Hood, yeah. This is a thin lineup. So some of these Cavs pieces, and they're all going to be really low owned because of the matchup. So I'm a pretty big fan of picking up, if I had to rank them right now. I mean, it's a tournament, so I'm looking for ceiling. I'm probably Clarkson, Nance, Hood, Sexton. In that order, the guys I'm trying to get into my lineup and play. Let me briefly touch on what we haven't touched on so we can get there. The Raptors all now, Kawhi, obviously much better. Don't worry about the price. Doesn't really change Danny Green a lot. He's a lot like, say, Trevor Ariza, in that his usage is not largely changed by the fact that similar things. You can have Devin Booker and TJ Warren disappear, and Trevor Ariza takes 6 shots. Danny Green's still going to take 7 shots. Ibaka's a little bit better. Valanciunas I like a good bit more. Van Vliet, the obviously chalky, but the person who obviously stands to benefit the most. Delon Wright as well. I also think that you as a collective will generally do better than most other people, so I would consider increasing your exposure with all this late breaking news. If you think we are dealing with it well, it is safe to assume many other people will not. Ibaka or Nance in a GPP, I would play Nance. Ibaka is a much safer play, but if you get a game where you get 14 shots out of Larry Nance, he looks pretty good. The matchup still isn't great, so that ends up being really close for me. Ibaka is a safer play there, but that is an as-you-like-it last spot in there. Bulls and Rockets. Lauri Markkanen costs $3,500 on FanDuel. Yes, I do think he's a must-play. We don't have a real specific, well-quantified minutes limit, but he is coming off the bench, so that inherently implies a pretty low one. I will guess 21 minutes. I'm still a pretty big fan of $3,500 Lauri Markkanen in 21 minutes off the bench there. Beyond that, Lauri coming back does screw everyone at least a little bit, but being off the bench and being only 21 minutes, it's not as severe as it would have been. As far as order of how much to downgrade guys and how to treat them in this matchup with the Rockets, which isn't a great matchup. They have a couple very strong defenders, and Paul's pretty good. Tucker's very good, obviously. Capella does a good job at rim protecting. Harden's obviously shit, but Ennis does a decent job. So it's a matchup we're already not thrilled with. The pace in Houston is wicked, wicked slow. So Archie Diacono, I want none of. Zach LaVine still in play in tournaments, but his price is also at an all-time high, and Laurie coming back I don't think should affect him much. It knocks Chandler Hutchinson completely out of the possibility of being played. It doesn't affect Wendell Carter much. I'm still fine with him. FanDuel or DraftKings. FanDuel is down to 5,600. Feel free to get yourself some of that. It does, to some degree, probably directly affect Jabari Parker. I don't know if it's 4 of his minutes or 8 of his minutes at this point, but he goes from being a really solid play who had a fair bit of leg forwards. His price is now up also 6,800, 7,500. I'm more inclined to not play. He's still in play in tournaments, but I'd be disinclined towards him at this point. And Justin Holiday, again, someone who's going to be one of the guys who actually ends up losing a couple minutes. It'll be interesting to see if we move Jabari up to the 3 at all for his time, etc. But that's my take on this team. I am not completely shocked if you get news in 12 minutes that Chris Paul is sitting. I don't necessarily expect him to sit. Last night, obviously, again, they limited his minutes to, I think it was 28. So he almost certainly plays again today. But he's obviously had this hamstring go out and cost him a month 5 or 6 times. So if I'm on that fucking training staff, I'm like, okay, this is the Bulls. We got this. Take one off. I have no reason to think this will happen other than common sense. And I think D'Antoni is generally a fairly smart coach. Yeah, I believe there is a larger than normal chance that Chris Paul sits. So maybe have sort of a James Harden plan. If Chris Paul is in, it's a bit of a mess. It's a monster spot for Capella. Again, these two teams did play once this year and actually played fairly close. The game stayed 1,000 points or something, I want to say like that. Capella was fine. I do think he will generally do better than that on average. But so Capella, fine in tournaments for me, probably looking cheaper in cash. Harden for 11-9 on either site with this matchup is in play regardless. Like there's absolutely, like he can score 70 against the Bulls with Chris Paul in there. Absolutely. He can score 90 against the Bulls with Chris Paul out, but there's no reason not to have some exposure to James Harden still. I am avoiding all your X or Ys until I get done talking about all the teams. I do apologize, but I will get to them. I want to spend at least a few seconds. We only have one more, which is the Kings and the Pacers. As I alluded to before, a piece of news that appears to be somewhat under considered is the fact that Kufis is back and is going to play. That messes up everyone down low a little bit. I like Willie Cauley-Stein a little less. I still like him just fine. I like Bagley a little less, who, again, himself is still questionable. I like him fine. Leaving space for him makes a lot of sense. 5,600 on DK is still well too cheap. Harry Giles with Kufis back is almost out of play for me, but on the very edge of playable, and you need Bagley out for that to work at all. With the news about Bagley, if you find out Bagley is out, Nemanja Bjelica is going to get back up to 30 minutes or so. He's 4,500 on FanDuel, 3,900 on DK. I'm a big fan of those guys at those prices. But outside of that, the matchup with the Pacers, not a super sexy one, obviously. They've been pretty restrictive, number of decent backcourt guards. So De'Aaron Fox is still too cheap on DK. I don't mind him in cash even at 6,900. I don't mind him in tournaments at 6,900. Healed just tournaments for me is losing some usage more than anything else, but a little bit of time to Bogdan Bogdanovic. Just keep an eye on it. DraftKings prices all better anyway on everyone on this team, and so look at it as late swap options as that evening comes up. You're hoping Bagley is out. That makes everyone in this game a little bit better. Everyone on that team, rather. Looking across to the Pacers, so Victor Oladipo being out is the new normal. This is the way Chetty is in. Is this literally like somebody filled out a form wrong? This shit cracks me up. So a heads up here, only one Cavs reporter has Osman out. We think it's possibly missed up Osman and Zizic since he used the same injury. I feel bad for Fantasy Labs. Basically, it's Justin. This one guy does an incredible job. All right, so Chetty is in. Chetty is probably my favorite player on this team now. Sexton's going to lose a few minutes, and as you've known, Sexton's been good 2 out of 16 days. Burks on FanDuel still makes plenty of sense. Chetty is the next guy I'm playing on this team. Then Lance. Actually, I'm sorry, in cash, Tristan beats them all. So you can even play Tristan in tournaments. I like Tristan plenty in anything. He's just too cheap for what he's been doing. But that's pretty hilarious the way that worked out. Pistons are starting who we expected to. They are who we thought they were. So yeah, same thing. Same things with Wizards value. Same thing with Raptors value. Halt on that whole Cavs value thing. Thank you everyone for being my little Jimmy Olsons today. That really helps a lot. So anyhow, it's the new normal. Sans Oladipo is going to be out indefinitely, which is good. Get him right. And this team is like I'm trying to know the record without Oladipo, but I think they're like 6-2 without Oladipo. They're doing just fine. So Tyreke Evans, I legit like on FanDuel, where he's wicked cheap. Do I think Sabonis is going to play? I have no more knowledge than you do, and that makes it a very interesting situation where you can try to Miles Turner. But Miles Turner not out of play anyway. Again, the price on FanDuel, 7,100, you're not feeling great about that. Even with Sabonis out, that's around what he should cost. He's just, I need to get the blocks. Like, he just isn't involved enough in the offense that's like, oh god, Sabonis is out, $7,100 Miles Turner is a lock, so leave room for DK, wait for news. But I'm not feeling too bad about missing the opportunity to Turner, but it is worth pointing out that it's another reason to really like guys for this game. Kings, still somewhere top 3 in pace, still very bad defensively. These guys should put up some numbers. So I really like Tyreke Evans, especially on FanDuel, $5,000. He's going to have some better games. And we've said this about a lot of guys, but he has been underperforming. You will do a little better. Do I prefer Reek over Bojan on FanDuel? I do. So there you go. Jerebko starting. Not surprised. Obviously makes him the best of the value options there. But again, the guy who's starting moves his projection to 21.5 minutes as opposed to 19 minutes. So it's better, but it's not like, oh shit, he's getting 30. That just isn't how it works. Jordan Bell will start and get 14. Kevon Looney will start and get 18. So feel free to have some more interest in Jerebko, but no need to rework everything to get Jonas into your lineup. His name is Jonas. He's carrying the wheel. Bojan just fine to play. Again, a little more muted of an upside. I would rather play Tyreke. Bojan probably more likely to get 25. Tyreke more likely to get 40. I'm pretty sure would be the way the math would work out, so I'd be a little more inclined towards Tyreke. But again, both priced very well on FanDuel. We're the same price dollar for dollar than DK. That's usually an indicator of a functional discount, as opposed to say Darren Collison's a grand more on FanDuel. Collison still at 5,400 on DK is too cheap, and his ownership will have come significantly down today. Sabonis, thanks for all you've shown us. Very nice. That's brilliant. That's excellent. No one's going to get that reference, but that was very well done. Kojo, 4,400. Same deal. These guys are all very strong tournament plays. I'm still not playing Doug McDermott. I basically will never play Doug McDermott, but this is another time he's got a shot with all those guys out. But this is how we feel. I got it. You guys are doing good. You guys are doing good. When we can get Weezer lyrics involved in the show, we are next level. Questions going to the premium first round. We got 5 minutes left. Do I prefer Reek over Bojan? Yes. That. Do I think Sabonis is going to play? I don't know. I think he's questionable. That's about a 50-50 call. I have no reason to believe otherwise. Premium chat, if you got questions, can you go over how you'd handle the Bagley and Sabonis injuries? I think I've basically covered it. Avoiding sort of the front court there a little bit. You can still play Willie Cauley-Stein. It's not that relevant on that. But Giles is out of play until you find out Bagley is out. I think we've covered that fairly well. Tristan Thompson or Willie Cauley-Stein, FanDuel GPP. I think I'd play Willie Cauley-Stein. Your ownership should be much better. Tristan is going to be pretty popular, as he should be on FanDuel. He is extremely well priced. Yeah. Ubra or Evans? I would play Evans, but I think they're both strong tournament plays. Thad Young, a good play on DraftKings? Yes, I think he's just fine. Again, something I'd rather do in tournaments, but I have no issue with that. Is Napier still a play in GPPs? Absolutely. I think he was a B and almost made his way up to an A play because I think, again, it's an exceptional matchup. I'm worried about the blowout. I'm worried about all sorts of shit going sideways. He's still going to, be in there in the blowout and probably hold some reasonable role, even if it doesn't go, which we saw yesterday, even if it doesn't blow out. So, yeah, I'm fine with Shabazz. Ibaka or Nance, DK Cash? Cash is Ibaka. That was easy. Button. Chetty out over on FanDuel. I mean, Chetty is very cute in tournaments right now. Chetty or Bojan, FanDuel GPP, Chetty. Reek versus Chetty on DK. I really like them both in tournaments. I would play Chetty. J-Val or Osman for cash. I would play J-Val for cash. I mean, when these two teams met the first time, he basically played 20 minutes, had 25 fantasy points. That's about where you'd project him. Under 20 would be surprising. And it's J-Val, so you have 40, 45 upside. FanDuel cash, Wall and Bogdan Bon or Harden and Satoransky. Cash. Play Harden and Santo. But that is very close. DK, single entry, J-Val or Tyreek. I have Shabazz as an A in the rankings for tournaments. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways that he gets there, and even in the we're shutting down half the damn lineup, he's probably the guy who gets the 26 minutes. So, for his 3,200 or whatever on DK, I like Shabazz a lot in tournaments. Satoransky versus Shabazz is certainly Satoransky in cash. Shabazz in tournaments is fine with me. I think I'd slightly incline that way. Irving and Russell or Van Vliet and Harden for FanDuel cash. Why does it always reset my comments like that right in the middle of what I'm doing? So frustrating. Prioritize Kawhi? Yes, I think it is fair to say at this point I would prioritize Kawhi. I don't think enough people will make the pivot that they should with everything else opening up. So, yes, I do think you prioritize Kawhi. Any Hood? No, with Chetty back in, I mean, Hood's fine to play in tournaments any day. It's Rodney Hood, but it's not like a Hood spot. The matchup's actually pretty shitty. Curry okay in cash over Wall on DK. I slightly prefer Wall in cash, but it's very, very close. Crab, Burks, Delon. Pick two, please, on FanDuel. I'd play Delon and Burks. Much as I like getting crabby, I'd play Delon and Burks. Van Vliet, strong cash play now. Yes. Allen and Darren are J-Val, Thompson, cash. I'll go J-Val and Thompson at this point. Towns or Kawhi and cash. I'll go Kawhi at this point, certainly, honestly. That was Tyreek Evans, my bad. I don't know what you're referring to, but we're good. You think Tristan Thompson's a fabulous play now? Not that much has changed, but I think Tristan Thompson was a pretty fabulous play all day, so we're still feeling good about life. Looking at news as we come down to it, my friends. Yes, no, I definitely think that remains being Tristan there. I think is definitely the place to go. And we are there, my friends. We have hit the lock. We can take a look at some ownership and see who and what we have. We okay with Surge in cash? And not starting again makes you a little less of a fan there, but I'm a fan. I think I'm still fine with him in cash. His price is still pretty advantageous. So let's take a look at the 400K big jam on DraftKings. Look at some ownership. If I have... Okay, now it's being weird. I think there's an entry in this. 5K overlay in the $10 GPP on DK. Really? Actual overlay? I doubt actual overlay. Probably not collected rake, which is a different thing. You upgraded from really good play to fabulous play with Tristan. Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with that demarcation. Let's see, the 400K, is this the $10? I'm trying to see. Yes, on DK, has 42,073 entries, so they took in 420,000 and paid out 400, so they're ranking 121st, which is a hair under 5%. So yeah, it did not overlay. There is no overlay in this contest, but rather than collecting the $60,000 in rake they intended to, they only collected 20. So that would be the right way to talk about that there. Let's take a look at some ownership on DraftKings. Everybody's favorite game, Daddy like. Windows cannot complete the extraction. Sounds like I'm doing home surgery. I don't know what's going on here. Something is wrong. Alright, well, guess I'll try once more, but if I have to, I'm gonna start clicking on random lineups. Huh. Hope everyone doesn't mind if I take a minute here. I'll handle a couple more questions. Obviously, there's a number of people playing, the DraftKings, and still some time to make some changes there. You don't want to line up with Chetty, Fred, Van Vliet, Satoransky, and Crab. I mean, that's one more super value guy than I'm really trying to play, but I'm not in tears if I end up with that as a lineup. I mean, you're playing those four guys, Kawhi, Harden, Durant, and X probably, but okay, we'll do that and do that. And we'll try this one more time, and if that doesn't work, we'll just click around on some lineups, because somehow something, I'm like, hey, it opened. Alright, so, ownership. D'Angelo Russell, 35%. Is going to be very good or very bad. I'm fine with it. Generally at 35, I think I'd be away instead of on, but it's not dreadful. Damari Carroll, 27%. A little more reasonable, I'd probably be away. Wall, 27. Yeah, I mean, looked good yesterday. He had 35 fantasy points in 25 minutes or something. He was going to put up 50 or so. Shot like shit, but still was going to get, 5 steals, 13 assists, and do that whole thing. So, but fresh, hard not to like the matchup. So, yeah, I'm fine with Wall there. Porter, 20%, sure. Blake, 18%. Okay. Jared Allen, 18%. I like that a lot. Glad to see people coming around. Andre Drummond, I would take the under against the Warriors. At me later. Dinwiddie, 16, feels good. Durant, 14.5, feels very good. Satoransky up to 14%. That's fine. Stephen, 13%. I like that a lot. Markieff, 12%. Yeah, Markieff, should do better today. Everyone should on that team. Beal, 9%. I like that a lot. Rondé, 8%. Sure. Reggie Bullock, 6%. Not with Kennard back and everything going on there. I don't want that. Alan Crabb, 6%. Okay. Shabazz Napier, 6%. That feels good. Reggie Jackson, 5.6. That feels good. Jonas Jerebko, 5.5. That feels good. Clay, 4.4%. That's what I'm saying. That's absolutely fine if you played Clay. Oubre, 4.2, feels good. Ed D, 2.74, fine. Stanley, 2.54. Again, I would have rather played him than, say, Reggie Bullock, as previously mentioned. Thomas Bryant, 2.4. Ish Smith, 1.07. Kevon Looney, 1.03. Iguodala, 0.7. Austin Rivers, 0.52. Quinn Cook, 0.30. Zaza, 0.22. Jeff Green, 0.22. Jeff Green's out, isn't he? Just want to make sure I didn't get that before I say my tag phrase. I want to make sure I'm correctly differentiating the fake news and the real news. Jeff Green is out. Congratulations. You played yourself. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I got to look and see what time, hopefully the correct one for once, FanDuel and DraftKings have decided to run the game. Hopefully it is a... hopefully they do it well this time and we get the right slates at the right times to have some excellent Sunday fun day basketball. So I will see you all tomorrow. Again, feel free to sign up at osmo.com. I think the promo code to get a week free or whatever our current offerings are, you can scan around the site. It'll show you. I should tell you to put in live before lock, because they keep track of which code gets put in more, which I think is poop, because who the hell wants to sign up for a site right before the slate starts? Nobody wants to do that. So we don't get as many people signing up that way. We got plenty of people using code Fast Eddie Fear during the preseason, so that worked out well. Maybe we'll do another Fast Eddie code someday soon. But those of you who haven't, you get all sorts of amazing stuff from, obviously, the ownership projections, which are brilliant and pretty key to being successful at fantasy basketball these days, especially if you're entering more than one lineup. Projections from a number of our experts, my personal rankings, which also I rank all the players I would put in a 150 player field, so it's also giving you just the pool of players from which you can start, which I'm told is fairly useful. So all that stuff available if you sign up for Awesemo.com Premium. Okay, I will be back tomorrow. Have you any questions further that I have not addressed? Feel free to follow up on the Twitter sphere at FastEddieFear. Bonne chance, mes amis. See you all.